the sort of green ink of the briars fades back into Rosamund's hand, and a black ink starts. But you realize it's not actually ink. It's like chiaroscuro. It's almost like charcoal. It sort of just appears on the page, and this like rapid sketch of an empty fireplace is suddenly there. And all of you hear a rush of wind as the real trees above you suddenly bend in a tempestuous burst of gale force winds. And on the page in front of you, you see that something thuds from the chimney of the drawing into the empty fireplace. And you see a figure in gleaming glass armor, boom, lift a visor, look at you as a drawing, and you see a woman's face going, "You're awake." And you close the book.
What was she wearing?
Gown and hat and a hood and a crown and ringlets. But last we saw her, it was different, even worse than before. She had come in and, you know, she had done her spells, but the shadow had come. We had heard word from the people here. There were some other young women here. And their mother had gotten them to carve their toes off with a knife or cut their heels off their feet, like. And then the princess, she up and left. And that's when the storms came, and that fairy came back with hollow eyes, mad beyond reckoning, turning all sorts of creatures of the field, beasts and birds, into seamstresses and garland makers. And she was grabbing up lassies left and right and making them fall in love, and it was a horror.
That sounds awful. There was a shoe, right?
Hi, you know it?
I think that's what we're looking for here. I think we're looking for the shoe.
Shoe.
The only information we had was that he turned the whole town upside down looking for someone to fit into the shoe. So
Well, we remember the shoe the first time, and we remember it the second.
The second.
Well, the first time, it were nothing more than a glass slipper, it were. And that's why them girls had chopped off their heels and chopped off their toes. You see Donald, the sort of spokesman of the mice here, goes, right, that first time it were a glass slipper. The second time, a girl had come back here. She'd come back because something had changed. The woman who used to live here, she changed into something fierce. One night by the fireplace, she called her daughters down to her. We saw them go behind the chair by the fireplace, and we never saw them girls again. But that woman stood up. She got on a horse. We had known her to have a name before then, but none could remember it after that. And shortly after that, Her Highness, the princess, come back. And she came here because she knew something foul had happened. Both those daughters were gone, and the woman who used to live here had left. The place was abandoned. Princess came back, and that, you see that the other one, Norbert says, and that's when the fairy came back too. She had come back, and she told the princess to get back to the castle, keep living her happy life with the prince, like, said get back to things as they were and as they should be. And the princess looked at her, told her she were a foul thing, that fairy. She broke off the heel of one of them glass slippers. And the last time we saw it, she had took it up in her hand, and that young lady, who ain't been nothing more than an ash maid treated so awful by her sisters, she took a spear of glass and threw it and drove it through the heart of that fairy there. You look up the staircase. There's a doorway up there. You go to that door. You look at it. Pinocchio. It's It's the door. It's not the door that you walk through to get to that hallway. You're looking.
The door I look through?
It's the door you look and see where she only lives in silhouette. You're seeing a door here like one, there's something about it. Even with a wooden body, you feel suddenly nauseous, like you're seeing something you're not supposed to see. Like the moment of seeing the great and powerful Oz, and then here's the man behind the curtain. This is the door, the original door. You're seeing some naked piece of old magic, and it's just a dusty old wooden door, a little bit off its hinges.
Is there anyone immediately next to me?
No.
Just gonna open it a little bit. I just want to peek inside.
You open it a little bit. You see a fireplace in this great bedroom. Bedroom of the lord and lady of this house. And you see a chair by the fireplace, and you see some shapes behind it.
Mom?
2 skeletons on the other side of the chair. One with no toe bones, the other with a chunk of its heel carved off. You see bloody handprints all across the floor. Your stepmother isn't calling you. But this was her home, you think. And you think that here in this place, a time came where she needed something deep and powerful. And you think she ate the 2 young girls here.
Rough. Okay. I think she ate her 2 daughters.
You see cracked bones, marrow sucked out of a femur. It looks like, and that bloody handprints are the handprints of a stately woman in a regal dress on all 4s devouring her daughters, bite by bite. In the darkness of the forest, you know that you're heading back towards the road. You're also starting to see horrifying little sculptures of wire and household things. A birdhouse full of human finger bones, a strange watering can filled with blood, all sorts of objects decorated throughout the forest. And there begin to be piles of kind of larger objects. You also see a kind of indiscriminate slaughtering of life. Like you see there's like a dead cow, a dead horse, just throat slit, left here in the woods next to some of these objects. Like with a knife, like not animal v animal, weaponry. The first thing you see as you move, as these sort of piles of objects get bigger and bigger, you see light in the darkness of the forest. Very subtle, but you know that you're probably only couple dozen yards away when you see the little bit of light. And shortly thereafter, you hear the noise of sort of bumping of like wooden and metal things sort of jostling together, but it's big. It sounds like almost like ships, you know, like the noise boats make when they like bang together in the water. And you hear also voices, some horrible mixture of a man's voice, but coming hollowly out of like a wooden chest, going, listen, of like a chest that can't seem to hold enough air to make the vocal cords go. You hear a voice of someone trying to scream, but instead of a throat with vocal cords, it's just a series of like clanging bells. And over all of that, as you approach closer and closer, you hear a high, shrill, now, servants! Everyone, to attention. There are interlopers, yes. My little helpers have let me know that there are those nearby in the village that would mean us harm. We've seen a rabbit and a ram moving through the wood. These creatures of blood. There is no telling, they might be working for our wayward young princess. And it is critical that we take those who have spoiled her mind and made her abandon her destiny. We must return Elegy to what it was always meant to be. She will come, and when she apologizes to her godmother, she will get this thing out of me. You see an enormous pumpkin carriage rotting in the middle of the road, sagging, the stink of the sugar-sweet rotting gourd, this massive carriage, and standing in this sort of yawning rot opening of the pumpkin carriage is a sickly green crown-wearing fairy with a jutting spear of glass coming from her chest, the wound scabbed over as it rests, lodged within her heart. She looks sickly swamp green and like something neither living nor dead. And she is surrounded by her staff of servants here in whatever sick mockery of the world she once envisioned. She has lost much blood and much magic. There are barrel soldiers who have the heads of men growing from the sides of wooden barrels, who wheeze into chests made of banded beams of wood with no lungs to hold their breath. You see there is a blacksmith whose head is still an anvil and sways there with hammers, seemingly only able to like swing at whatever reverberates off the steel as it like bangs its own like anvil head. Just this assortment of transmutations and transformations half done by an undead fairy god.
Is there a...
Rosamond, you are hit by this and have a sudden memory of screaming. You're looking up, there's bars around you, and fairies leaning over a crib with rotting faces. Oh no. 3 gifts we've come to give, and 3 gifts we shall. And you see that the last blue fairy, worms moving in her eyes, goes, "What do you imagine my gift would have been if it had all not gone so wrong?" And you're back in the battle. What does it look like when Pinocchio summons this magic?
I imagine it as being Pinocchio's mouth just opens, and emanating out is not his voice, but that of the stepmother.
Would she recognize that?
Just dressing down this woman.
Pinocchio, your mouth opens up, and so I think only Gerard, you actually haven't whipped around the hillside yet, so you can't see this. And so actually, this is hidden from everybody right now. But Pinocchio, your eyes go slack, and appearing all over your body, spectral, glowing strings. As your mouth opens, and all of you hear the voice of a older woman go, "If it isn't the little slime that took that serving girl off my floor and made her a princess, I'm going to see you dead tonight." There is some tickling sensation of insects. You feel moss and fungus growing in the damp wood of your body, and you wonder, given that you are not a real little boy, if perhaps this is the afterlife that awaits you, that it is simply slow deterioration. As you feel insects finding joints and creaks and gnarls and knots and finding places of purchase within yourself, you also feel your staff in your hand.
And then I also took the, there's a knife, you had like a little knife by your bed.
Give me the knife.
I go to reach into my pockets just to see if I have.
Startlingly, completely untranslucent, the doorknob, the etching, and the knife are all in your little traveler's rucksack.
I hold up the knife.
A long arm travels farther than it should down the hallway until it rests before you. And here you see something very much cloaked in shadow, but long and powerful, larger than a human hand should be.
I think Pinocchio is gonna slowly reach out his hand.
The hand stays there with the knife in it and says, "The rest, Pinocchio."
Is my I'll take the etching,
Mm-hmm.
hand it to her. Is my dad okay?
Well, we'll have to talk about that, won't we?
Well, I wanna talk about it now. And I'm gonna clutch the doorknob to my chest.
She retracts those things, deposits them on the other side of the door. She quickly moves her hand and almost contact juggles the doorknob into suddenly disappearing, and the little hole of light in the door vanishes. And then she, as quick as anything, reaches up and snaps the nose off your face.
Oh, shit! Oh, fuck!
You had the right idea, Pinocchio. This is quite a liability.
Yes.
No. We need to send you back.
What? Wait, wait.
Look, it's going to get bad. I told you to protect her. I told you to watch after her. And you let things get out of hand. They almost found her. And now they know that she's out there.
Who's they? Who are they?
Impudent little child. I think you know or can guess who I mean by they. Be they fairies, witches, ogres, wizards, what have you. The point is to keep the Princess Rosamond hidden from those eyes. You said you met a fairy that knew me. That is altogether too close and time is running out. We know who has blood. Your poor father. You're only hurting him.
Oh.
But if he must hurt so that his son may survive,
No, wait.
you have already chosen this path. Wait here. And closes the door.
I'd like to speak to my mom.
Is that gonna work?
All of you, watch as something terrible unfolds. Rosamond, hiding in the closet, you see the door closed behind you leading to the hallway opens just a crack. The candle sputters, and you hear a voice, Pinocchio, say, I did not summon you to speak to me. The door opens, the candle sputters. You see, so I need to describe this as happening sort of in bullet time. All of you see the candle sputters, Rosamond and Pinocchio. You see a face you recognize in the flame of the candle. You see
A face?
a face in the flame of the candle. It is the face of the fairy that came to the village of Amonti. It is the face of the fairy that attempted to kill you. This is the wicked fairy. She looks out. The door to the outside flies open, and you see your stepmother's silhouette in the doorway. All of you see this for the first time. You see the silhouette, like high hair, a broad, beautiful gown, long, sharp fingers. Pinocchio, you don't think anyone's ever seen the stepmother before. All of you immediately have the sensation that you are seeing something you absolutely should not see. The face of a divinity you don't worship. The fucking smile of a devil that you never believed in. Something horrifying appears before you. It is in silhouette. Pinocchio, you are standing in between the candle and the doorway, and you guys see this long puppet shadow casting up onto the silhouette where light pours in from behind the door. My question for you is, as you hear the door to the stepmother open behind you and see this unfamiliar face in the light of the candle, do you turn to look to the door, or do you stay exactly where you are, unmoving?
Okay. I think even in just the childlike way that Pinocchio is young, I'm going to turn away from the woman who I watched kill a bunch of people and turn to my paternal figure.
So, Gerard, you throw the sword. Pinocchio, you turn. The light of the candle not only shines forward, but also reflects off the spinning blade of the sword of truth as it moves through the air. That light casts on the face of the woman in the doorway. All of you are so small. The doorway is huge. What room were you in? Were you in an inn, a village? You're nowhere now. You're just here in the hall on the other side of the door. The candle flickers. All of you watch the sword twist. The light when the candle moves and illuminates the face of the stepmother. The first to recognize what she is seeing is the wicked fairy, the architect of your life's story and the horror that brought you to your current state. That wicked fairy screams, not in agony, but in pure terror. She screams so hard that her voice rips in her throat and blood froths at the edges of her mouth. And rather than continue to see what she is seeing, she reaches up, pulls her eyes from her head, and the candle extinguishes. As the candle extinguishes, do any of you follow her eyes to see the stepmother? The face of the stepmother is illuminated. To some degree, there is a face of a person there. But what you see in that face is shifting visions of utter malice and spite. The face moves as though no expression of contempt can satisfy it. Shifting between sneers, you see a sneer of the corner of a mouth that wants to curl, and so a new mouth splits the edge of the lip and grows a new mouth in its place, moving and shifting upon the surface of this woman's head. But you see, it is so much vaster than that. As the sword moves, it shows her skin pale and deathly and almost translucent, like wet paper that can be seen through against the light. And you see that there are hundreds, thousands, perhaps uncountable beings crawling under her skin. She has eaten worlds and stories beyond counting. As you see this, she makes eye contact with you, recognizing Pinocchio. In a moment, failing that charisma saving throw, do you remember your mother or your grandmother first?
Grandma's always on my mind.
Grandma turns to look and goes, "Lid, how did you get here? There are two hands as large as shields on either side of your grandmother, and a mouth opens, and this stepmother bites the head and shoulders off of your grandmother, swallows, and eats her. Pinocchio.
What? Excuse me? What? Is this real?
Pinocchio, you watch.
Do I see that?
You see shifting of this thing. There is a moment where you suddenly see her cheek swell as a tiny arm pushes against the skin from the inside of her mouth, pushes through in blood, pulls open her cheek and tries to crawl out, and she gets it with her tongue and swallows it. You see that.
Do I sense that this is like real to me, or like what does this feel like to me?
You are watching
like a disconnected vision as you are rooted to the spot. There is something here, I think, that it feels real in the way that a nightmare feels real that you can't wake up from. It's like your experience of it couldn't be more vivid or horrifying, but you're not standing in that room at the inn anymore. Pinocchio, that shape that you saw for a moment was a woman you don't recognize wearing a crown that was trying to escape, but she was covered in blood and saliva, and you see that the stepmother goes,
grandmother, close enough.
As she does, she looks at you and says,
You don't call to speak to me.
the sword was thrown to you. Do you reach to grab the sword or no?
Yeah, I'll grab it.
Pinocchio, you look up and you see your stepmother. As the sword's twisting through the air, time is so slow, right? Time is so fucking slow. Sword twists through the air. And as the sword moves at an angle where it's no longer shining the light of the candle on her, that vision of that twisting form moves away. And now she just stands there still in the light of the candle, but now it's just sunken eyes and shadows. She goes, again, in slow time, you just hear in your mind,
You do not open the door to me, child. I open the door to you. I was not ready to speak with you, impudent boy. Now you have truly outlived your use.
she throws your strings and attaches all of them to you. As they attach to your body, you are flooded with pain. As the Frog Prince's aim is true, and you grasp the sword of truth in your hand, just as the strings connect. On a nat 20, you tell me what happens as you grab the sword.
I think truly from just a place of fear, Pinocchio grabs as many of the strings as he can with his free hand and cuts himself free.
The boy who was not supposed to tell a lie brings the sword of truth down on the strings, severs them. Reality shatters. You are falling through endless scraps of burning pages of texts of your stories, all of which are burning in this moment. The screams of a woman larger than forests, mountains, or oceans, barreling through burning pages after you, screaming. The strings from the sword of truth recoil in flame towards her hand, and she cannot seem to let go of them, as your strings that you've just severed with the sword of truth extend and land in a four-pronged wooden handle of a marionette. Once now back in your possession, you are falling. She goes,
Worse than death, worse than the end of stories.
sucks in a breath as all these burning scraps of parchment enter her throat, and before she can exhale, a gleaming door appears behind you. Emerging out of your book, it flies open, and the woman who showed herself to you in an illusion, Scheherazade, reaches out with a golden rope, grabs you, and throws you into the door as it slams shut and the stepmother disappears.